Hello and welcome to the Smoke and Tire Podcast Studio. And if you're here right now, that means you've enjoyed the 4th season of Tuned and that it is now over. And as we've done in the past, that means it's time for me to go through some of our comments from our videos, some questions that people had now that we've had time to reflect on the season. And in order to read comments from you people, you know what I need. That's right. That's right. So let's just get right into it. This season was about variety, adventure, and originality. That's what's going to get you untuned, because by now we've seen it all. So we started the season with a car I really wanted to film, but we just had never found the right one. So we started with a pair of them, and that's the Subaru RSTI. You can actually do this swap for an unbelievably small amount of money. I mean, it's crazy how cheap they got these cars. I'm actually a little bit jealous.
As a starter car, the RS, even the L, like Irvin mentioned, would be a great starting ground for anyone that wants to build up a Subaru.
Make sure to ride his ass a little bit. The very definition of whipping. This is like driving a little mosquito that's on a whole bunch of great drugs. This video really showed two sides of what the RSTI swap can be. One car was a little more of a show car, a little more of a daily driver, and a little more just kind of drive around town. The other one was clearly a track-oriented canyon carving monster. One commenter said, "I stopped the video already. Track-oriented rally cars? You can definitely have more fun on a rally stage than on a racetrack." Well, that may be true, but not everyone can go do rallies. Rallies, and we know some rally drivers. Rallying is a big thing. It's much more expensive than going to a racetrack. Exponentially more expensive than going to a racetrack. Your car gets wrecked. It gets body panels ripped off it. Things break a lot more often. You need co-drivers and hotels. They're all over the country. Rallying and track days are not the same thing, and you can have a lot of fun at a racetrack or on a canyon road with a quality built car. Another commenter asks, a common question we got, how do you make an engine swapped car street legal? Now, when we film Tuned, I have a personal policy of don't ask, don't tell. So I have no idea how some of these people get plates on their cars. As long as there's a plate on them, when we get there, I'm good to go. Now, I know in certain states, you can do an engine swap as long as the engine you're putting in the car is newer than the engine you've taken out of the car, which is usually how it goes with an engine swap anyway. Other states are different. Some states don't allow it. Some people just know a guy. They know a guy. You feel me? I, on the other hand, know a guy named Ryan Gates who built a really fast Evo, and we got to drive it at Monticello Motor Club, one of my favorite racetracks. Let me tell you something about part of the reason we moved to California. In New York, it rains. A lot. Like, right after you wash the car, every damn time. Like, even if you've flown all the way across the country just to film one car, and Monticello lets you use their track, and you only have this one day because the car needs to go to the owner, it still rains. Hard.
The roll bar in there is fall line. We use chromoly steel. It's stronger. It's also a lot lighter than typical mild steel. So we chose that. It comes in, comes out in about 15 minutes. We run the same CE28s on my race car, 18 by 10.5 plus 18, and then the Nitto NT05s are the same tires we run on our race car, 275, 35, 18. That pretty much rounds out, the performance bit of it. It sounds simple, but it's effective, and everything works together well.
As we pass 120, I mean, obviously very easy to do these kinds of speeds. There's 130, 135. I think that's about the number for the straightaway here, is 135. And this shoot was a little bit frustrating for me because sometimes people don't really understand what it takes in order to do a shoot. And they don't give us enough time on track and that kind of stuff. But we did it, we got through it, and we tested the car. So, question number 1. This car or a loaded C7 Corvette, and why? Well, personally, I would take a loaded C7 Corvette because this, as nice of an Evo as it is a dressed up Evo. Whereas a C7 is a good starting point to go even higher. This is pretty maxed out as far as Evos go. Question number 2, do they upgrade the clutch, transmission, transfer case, etc., or is it all left stock? Being that this is a track car, it's going to be driven hard and those parts are under a lot of stress. No, they don't. The Evo stuff is pretty robust. and they haven't upgraded the power all that much. It's only 60 horsepower over stock. And so stuff like brakes, tires, wheels, suspension are upgraded, but none of the real internals are messed with because they have a warranty also. And by changing that stuff, you'd void the warranty. Speaking of voided warranties, how about a full-on race car? My buddies at TRG invited me to Sonoma Raceway to test drive the Aston Martin GT4 race car. This is the TRG Motorsports Aston Martin Vantage GT4, and it's very much a real race car. It's built in England by Aston Martin and ProDrive, and as far as race cars go, this one is about as turnkey as they come. The brakes also, plenty huge, racing specs, still power assisted. The throttle pedal in the car is very progressive. So unless you're being ridiculously irresponsible, you're probably not going to go off track backwards. There are very few things more satisfying than being able to race, or at least drive on the track, the racing version of one of my favorite exotic cars. I really enjoyed driving the Aston GT4 race car. Wasn't one of our more popular episodes this season. I guess the viewers would rather see home-built shitboxes than $200,000 race cars, and that's okay. Common question. Just curious, how come these cars cost around $200,000 and rally cars cost $500,000 and up? Well, the GT4 is a production-based race car. It starts as an Aston Martin Vantage that rolls off the assembly line and costs around $130,000 new. The upgrades to it to make it a race car make it cost about $200,000, but ultimately it's a production drivetrain, it's a production-based car. Whereas a WRC car that costs $500,000 is a completely unique race vehicle that will share no components with any production car, and when you're building stuff in that small quantity and that extreme level, it's going to be more expensive. Another question, I don't understand the cheap-looking, quote, GT wing. That wing's made of carbon fiber, so whether or not you think it's cheap, it's not cheap. It's actually quite expensive, and it does provide downforce at the rear if you adjust it correctly. If you don't adjust it correctly, it does nothing. There you go. Speaking of things that do nothing, we spent a week in Northern California driving the Roush Mustang RS3. Let's have a look at the clip. Mustangs are heavy cars. You know, you need to put the biggest possible brakes you can possibly fit in the car, especially for $68,000. For the kind of money they're charging, this thing should have carbon ceramic brakes on it. But instead it has slightly upgraded versions of what you get with a regular GT or a Boss. The sound is moderately addictive though, I will give you that. Then of course, there's the price. This episode, along with some magazine test data, proves that this car really isn't any better than a stock Mustang GT. The numbers, the acceleration numbers anyway, are about the same as a stock Mustang GT, despite the fact that it is listed as having 140 extra horsepower. It's really a traction issue and a live axle issue. Like I said in the video, the Mustang chassis does have a limit, and this car exceeds it. Speaking of which, first question, not really a question. What a vagina, he says. The Mustang's limit is 500 horsepower, and the best variants have always come straight from the factory? Does this guy know anything about cars? I do. I've driven a few of them. Only a few. And anyone who has driven a big horsepower Mustang and hasn't paid for it, that's important because those people have something to defend. If they've driven a big power Mustang and haven't paid for it, they will tell you just how terrible that car is. Anything over 500 horsepower in a Mustang is going to be awful, as this proved. Also, why are you holding the brakes while doing a burnout? He spelled brakes wrong. And you hold the brakes while doing a burnout in order to control the speed of the car. Otherwise, it just launches forward at as fast as it will go, and that's not what you want when shooting video. It's smokier and more controlled if you ride the brake with your left foot. Speaking of things you do with your left side, how about a right-hand drive Subaru Legacy built in the JDM style? One of my favorite films of the year. Let's take a look at the clip. in appreciation of one man's hard work on his Subaru Legacy using an assortment of rare JDM parts, we've decided to bring his car all the way back to Japan, which at this time of year seems to really resemble southern Connecticut.
Thanks, Drive, for shipping me and my car out to Japan and actually bringing my car back to where it belongs.
See, you heard what he said. We're in Japan. Our normal locations wouldn't suit the epicness of the build, so we've rented a typical Japanese home. That way, the car fits right in with the backdrop.
Okay, ready? Are you hearing all that?
I really like this car a lot. It was a beautiful build, and it was the only car we've ever done on Tuned. We're actually offered to buy the car at the end of it. I lowballed him, and I didn't get it, and that's fair. But the offer's on the table, Dave. I would like that car. My first car was a Subaru Legacy. The biggest thing about this video that really cracks me up, if this is Japan, why is he driving on the right side? It's not Japan. Like, some of you got that joke, and some of you are stupid. No, we weren't in friggin' Japan. We were in Connecticut. That was the gag. And the other one, very common, where people were upset with the horsepower. 300 horsepower, he says. My V6 Mustang has that stock. Well, yes, but your V6 Mustang that has 300 horsepower is a 2011. This car was a 1998. And the point of the car was not that it was a horsepower monster. In fact, this car has a better power to weight ratio by quite a wide margin than a current Subaru STI. So it's not exactly slow. This car with 300 horsepower in 1998 was very quick. But the point isn't the power. The point is that he imported this engine and all these parts from Japan, creating a unique build. And speaking of things that are unique, let's talk about a unique event. Zach and I went out to the Nevada desert to do the Silver State Classic in a John Cooper Works Mini. It didn't go well. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we're off. All right, and the Silver State Classic begins. A little bit of torque steer happening. I do have 260 foot-pounds of it. 210 horsepower, there's 83, there's 90 mile an hour. Going into fifth at about $110. Gentle bend around to the left here. And there's my tech speed of 124 miles an hour that I'm supposed to stay under that. Honestly, that's going to be hard because I'm already bored here. Okay, that's not good because they said you should if you're driving your race, quote, you should never see another car. We're what, 3 minutes into this race, and I see a car up there. Oh, shit. Our target average is supposed to be 110. Right now, our average is 118.3. Ah, the John Cooper Works Mini. Very interesting car. Quick, fun to drive. Nothing works in the entertainment department. And the Silver State Classic is probably an event I won't be invited to do again. If you see the episode, you know why. But Zach knows how to make a tasty sandwich, as we learned in this film. Very common questions about other cars I mentioned in the film. The Corvette. Someone asked, what do I mean about the built-in roll protection on the Corvettes? What is that exactly? Well, on a Corvette, there's the windshield and the roof, and then what you'd call the B-pillar, which is the pillar that goes over behind your head. There's a roll bar integrated into that. And so that's what I mean by built-in roll protection in Corvettes. And then a lot of people actually asking about my IO mounts, iPhone mount, which we use to monitor data, and I stuck it to the big speedometer because all the big speedometer in the Mini is useful for is sticking suction cups to. Moving on. Yes. Speaking of Nevada, Thaddeus and I took a road trip to the SEMA show in a $480,000 Lamborghini Aventador. Let's take a look. Taking an Aventador to Vegas is certainly a unique experience. You're balling out of control, yet your neck and back are in constant pain. It's a circus wherever you go, but for everyone who gives you a smile, a thumbs up, or takes a picture, there's someone who thinks you owe them something because your car is worth more than their house. One woman gave me her number in 15 seconds. The other thought I should fill her gas tank because I quote, I know you got it. Now, I'm not gonna lie. The Aventador, SEMA, this was just an excuse to drive an Aventador to Vegas. I mean, you can complain and say, oh, it looks like you just had an excuse to drive an Aventador to Vegas. And you know what? You're completely right. I wanted to drive an Aventador to Vegas. We went to SEMA, we looked at some cars, and we drove an Aventador to Vegas. That was it. So, couple comments, fairly common. He just drove it in a straight line, like how all American cars are developed. How about going around a few corners? Well, we had a very specific mileage limit with that car, and I used all of it just to get to Las Vegas and back. And if the roads in the desert are straight, well, then so be it. I didn't have time to drive 300 miles out of the way to get to some corners. Also, I later, for the Smoking Tire, did an Aventador Roadster film with a Countach. And all we did was go through corners where we learned that it's not very good at them. So check that film out. Also, this might be a dumb question, but given this car's fuel economy, how did Matt not run out of gas in the desert? Well, I stopped off camera several times. The Aventador has a 23.8 gallon fuel tank, and we got 140 miles to a tank, which is just under, do the math, it's not good. It's really not good at all. It was horrible fuel economy. Speaking of thirsty cars, let's go to Reno, Nevada, where we met Cameron Baker and his turbocharged BMW E30.
It's got a dual pattern turbo cam. And the end result is, I mean, when the power kicks in, I have the turbo sized properly, so it comes onto full boost right at about the same time, so it really just packs a punch and takes off.
This chassis, very rigid actually, considering it's 25 years old, very tossable. He's got the Bilstein H&R combo suspension on here. Pretty good for an aftermarket BMW suspension. Usually BMWs are ruined by aftermarket suspension. Not so much here. It's probably because this is the combination they race Spec E30 on. As a speed per dollar value, I'll put this right up there in the same level as that RSTI from earlier in the season. Not much money invested. I'd be amazed if this car cost more than 10 or 12 grand in actual money to build. Same as those RSTIs. Very fast for dollars spent. I get why people like these things now. And mad respect to a young dude with very limited resources building a stupidly quick one in his garage. This is one of my favorite cars we drove this season. Very well sorted car. Very impressed with Cameron's work on it. All his friends have turbo E30s now. Mega cool stuff. Really, really fun car, and I got a new appreciation for the E30 as a result of it. Very common question, does it have a stock bottom end? Yes, it does. The E30 has a very low compression from the factory, making it perfect for boost, and that's what they've done. Another common question, since I spent a lot of time talking about meth, is WTF is meth for a car? Please answer, I have no idea. Meth injection is a separate bottle with methanol in it, and what it does is it shoots that into the combustion chamber along with fuel, essentially turning pump gas into race gas. Now, why wouldn't you just run race gas? Well, race gas is very expensive, it's annoying to get, and it's tough to come by depending on where you are in the world. Meth is a lot cheaper, and you can just fill your tank with pump gas and then fill a separate can with much cheaper methanol, creating a value solution to that problem of running a lot of boost. Speaking of a lot of boost, how about an aftermarket turbo on a GMC Canyon? Let's take a look.
I've chosen to modify this truck because I kind of fell into it and I don't know any better. I inherited the truck basically from my grandmother after my grandfather passed away, and just kind of snowballed from there. Blew up the original motor, and then it just got way out of hand after that, and here we are.
This was another vehicle where I liked the story a lot more than the actual car. I couldn't care less about a GMC Canyon, to be perfectly honest with you, but the kid worked it in and out, he's flipping burgers, his grandfather left him the truck, and he decided to make something of it. That, to me, is what it's all about, not the fact that I'm not that into sport trucks, or the fact that it's an automatic and a turbo. Like, such is life. He took what he was given, and he made it fast, just like Cameron, and I dug that. So, couple questions. How much did this kid's family pay you to review his truck? He works at In-N-Out. How much money do you think they have? Just saying. And then, you know, people got very upset with me that I don't like sport trucks. And this is just my personal opinion. Someone says, the point of a truck is to haul stuff. Somehow by making it sporty, it becomes useless? Because I haul dirt bikes, firewood, and random stuff, I need an off-roader. No thanks, I'll stick with my sport truck. As a former Raptor owner, I believe that it's important to use something for what it's meant for. So if you enjoy driving your sport truck and it hauls your stuff, that's great. I don't see the point because I would just have a sports car and then a truck for truck stuff. But not everybody can be a 2-car or 3-car or 4-car or 5-car household. So God bless you and your sport truck, sir. I hope you enjoy it. And speaking of things that need a little help from up above, our trip to Panama didn't start well, and we were certainly asking for it. Let's have a look. In order to both calm my nerves and pass the time, and since our work trip was turning into a vacation due to lack of cars, we decided to spend the rest of the day being tourists. Heard they've got some kind of canal down here. Maybe one of the workers will just show up with a blown Mustang. Maybe there will be a single turbo swapped Corolla just waiting for us in the parking lot. The Diablo Rojo, Red Devil. In the past, this colorful school bus was the method of public transportation in Panama City.
Bueno, en el transporte tenemos 12 años. 12 años en el transporte y éramos reconocidos en este país por los mentados Diablo Rojo, cosas que ya hoy en día no existen, porque ya los compensaron y ya los sacaron del sistema, modernizaron lo que es el transporte. Pero todavía hay personas como 1000 personas que tenemos buses todavía para hacer viajes especiales, paseos, viceversa, turismo, y por lo menos me gusta, pues.
The Smoking Tire crew loves Anthony Bourdain, and we want to be that for cars. And that's where this idea of going to a foreign country and finding car culture came about. And by now, hopefully you know that our trip ended well, but it certainly didn't start that way. And that's because no matter what you can do, it can all fall apart because you've never met these people and they live in a different country. So what's to prevent them from completely flaking on you? I might have missed this in the video, but are you going to show the highway street race or was it just too sketchy? We wanted to film the highway race until we rode on the bus. And then all of us, Yoel included, agreed that as long as we live, we never wanted to get on that bus again because it seemed just too sketchy. Now, they gave us a DVD that had a street race on it that supposedly they won. And we were going to put it in the video. And then when I got back to the hotel room and put it in my computer, it turns out it was the bus driver's R&B demo. Really. I wish I kept it, actually. That's a shame. I should have kept that. Fortunately, at the end of that film, we found Yoel, our fixer in Panama, and we got to drive his Suzuki Samurai high in the jungle. Oil pressure, fuel pressure, water temp, all pretty
Yes.
self-explanatory. What's this?
And that's the controller for the LED bar
Okay.
of the red and blue lights.
Stereo.
Stereo, CB,
CB.
siren,
Yeah, that works. And that's VHF.
VHF.
A lot of stuff in here.
Yeah.
And is this loud hailer?
Yeah.
PA? Test it. Yeah, that works. Hello. Yes, that works very well. I like it. Okay, we can go play now. Now I know how to do everything. All right. We're gonna start this off right by just driving right across the river. Down the rocks and into the, yes. Oh, that's about 18 inches of water. Yep. Oh, it's a little deeper there. That's gotta be 2 feet. Oh, on the power. Yes. This was a proper vehicle. Yoel's Samurai was just fantastic. A bare bones off-roader. Truly expressed Yoel. Everything about Yoel was in this car. And that's the thing we love the most on Tuned, when the owner is reflected in the car. I really enjoyed this. And look, I think I'm thinner there. Am I thinner now than I was there? I think I've lost a little bit of weight. It must have been all the cocaine I smuggled back from Panama. I said I would be 20 pounds lighter and rich. And guess what? Huh? Huh? Yeah. Oh, man. One commenter says, now that I've driven a Samurai that was built properly, what would I own as a 4x4? Very easy question. Range Rover. Autobiography. $160,000. Meridian stereo. Oh, it's just delicious. It's my favorite thing in the whole world. I love a good Range Rover. Matt and the Drive crew, when are we going to Mexico? It would be really nice. We have some cool things. This is how to not invite me to your country. After the Panama series, I asked people to email us at tuned@thesmokingtire.com if you want to be our fixer in your country. And what I got were a lot of emails that were like, come to Mexico, we have nice things. Or come to Algeria, there are cars here now. What I mean is, come to X country, I have a 1,000 horsepower whatever, and my friends have this, and this, and you can drive all of their cars at our favorite racetrack, which we've provided you. That's what I meant, not come to Mexico, we have some cool things. But speaking of cool things, how about a 900 horsepower Mitsubishi Evo with a parachute? Let's see the clip. Boost! This thing rips. There's not enough room. This country is too small for this car. There are no racetracks. There's no open runways. The roads are all like this. There's cars everywhere. You need a car like this in a bigger country with more room. This Evo is awesome. Now, one of the more common things was people saying, that is not an Evo 7, that is an Evo 8. And let me clear this up right now. That is an Evo 7 with an Evo 8 front clip and an Evo 9 rear clip. It is a 7. Trust me, we haven't messed that up. But some of the more common questions, how would it compete against the Nissan GTR? If we're talking a stock Nissan GTR, Gary's Evo would wax a GTR 6 ways to Sunday. This car was easily one of the fastest cars we've ever driven, and easily one of the scariest cars we've ever driven. Especially, see that water? See that fog there? You don't want that when you have 900 horsepower. That thing was all over the road, and those roads were terrible, and it was really sketch. But it would destroy a Nissan GTR, for sure. Now, a Schweitzer 1000 could be a different story. It'd be a good race. But a stock GTR, no way. Holy f***. No roll cage? There are no racetracks in Panama. There is only street cars. And his car is a street car. Does he do some drag racing with it? Yes. But he doesn't go to road tracks. He doesn't need roll cage for anything. And if you don't need a roll cage, you shouldn't put a roll cage in. It actually makes a car more dangerous. Because if you're driving around without a helmet on and you hit your head on the roll cage, that might kill you. Just saying. And, of course, why would they take the rotary out of the RX-7? There was an RX-7 in the back of the shop in the beginning that had a 2J in it. Presumably, you would take the rotary out of an RX-7 so that it works. Okay. Speaking of working, two cars that worked very, very well. Unfortunately, the weather didn't work for us at all. Let's head down to Austin, Texas with CJ Wilson Racing and a pair of MX-5s. I love the Miata, which is why I was so excited when CJ Wilson Racing and Continental Tires invited us down here to Texas to drive 2 of their Miatas. Not 1, but 2. On my right, we have an NA. It's a 92. And under the hood is a delicious engine that did not come with the car. And on the left, we've got the Continental Tire Challenge ST Class CJ Wilson Racing MX-5, which, as you could guess, is a race car. Now, we have come to Harris Hill Raceway outside Austin, Texas today, and if you can see me shivering from there, temperatures are hovering around 40 degrees. It's been raining on and off all day. There we go, look at that. Yes, that's a V8 in a Miata right there. And we like it because it's a Lexus V8, not an LS motor. Even though an LS motor is the right decision because it's more power for your dollar, a Lexus V8 is more interesting, and that's how you end up on Tuned. I also got to drive the CJ Wilson Racing MX-5 from the Conti Tire Challenge. And I like to thank CJ Wilson and Continental for inviting us down, by the way. That was a good time. The weather did not exactly cooperate. It was very cold and raining. But some common questions about this. What is the horsepower of that V8 Miata? Well, that engine made about 250 horsepower out of the box. It's got some headers and some exhaust on it and the ECU upgrades, basic stuff, bolt-ons. They wanted to keep it very reliable, making about 300 horsepower now. So in a tiny little 2,200, 2,400, what does that thing weigh, Zach?
Yeah, 24.
2,400 pound Miata. That is that's quite a bit of power, and it was just a beast. So much fun to drive that car. Someone else asked, a gentleman driver? What the hell is that? Secret of racing. Half the people pay to race, the other half get paid to race. Put them together, and you have a team. A gentleman driver writes the checks. Lastly, someone, I can't believe, questioned this, but an MX-5 is a good first car? Yeah, right, not unless you're f***ing loaded with cash. I'm not sure where you live, but I'd like to point you to a Miata that's recently come on the market. It's a 94. It has fading paint. It belongs to one Zach Clapman, and it is just a gorgeous piece of machinery. Look at him over there. It's for sale, and it can be yours for the low, low price of $3,000. So if you consider $3,000 loaded with cash, don't be buying a car. You need to move out of your box and into a bigger box first. That's cold as ice. No, buy his car if you're not loaded with cash. If you're loaded with cash, buy one of those, because that's a lot of fun, provided you can get traction. Speaking of traction, how about Adam Auerbach's Aero Brick, the 500 horsepower all-wheel drive Cyclone. I love it. So mean.
I run time trials, SCCA time trials. We do hill climbs, the Virginia City Hill Climb, the Spectre 341 Challenge, we ran that. We're looking to possibly do the Silver State Classic. Typically I don't drive it around the street. For all those purist Cyclone lovers out there, the wing and the splitter does come off for street use. But for the racetrack, we need the added downforce for this Aero Brick because we have the radiator in the back and there's a giant reverse NACA duct back there, which actually creates lift, and trucks themselves inherently create lift. So when we're going 120 miles an hour around the S's, we want to make sure we have adequate downforce pushing down on the tires. It's pretty brutal. It's pretty nasty. It's a different feel than an Evo. It's not like you got to wait for the torque to come on when the turbo comes on. This thing has massive torque. This is the sinister bastard child. You know?
The Cyclone embodies pretty much everything I love about tuned cars. Taking something that was not meant to be fast, making it crazy fast, racing it, while at the same time not letting go of the original spirit of the build. The Cyclone started out as all-wheel drive V6 turbo, and it's still all-wheel drive V6 turbo. It's just way over the top. Does it work perfectly every time? No, but it's a race car, and that's what happens. And I think the most important thing about a tuned car is it's not about how much horsepower you have, what the numbers are, or who you can impress by rolling up to a club with it. It's really about how it makes you feel as an owner. And it's certain after meeting Adam and seeing how he is around his truck that he loves this truck. And I love it too. It's really fun to drive. But it's people like to say tuned is about this, or tuned should be about this, or you shouldn't drive that and you should drive. Tuned is about what four people who live in a house in California decide tuned is about, and nothing more. And I think the Cyclone really embodies our favorite things about tuned cars. Well, folks, this is the end of our 4th season, and I'd like to leave you with 2 thoughts. One is we want to know where to go next. We want to know what to see. Email us at tuned@thesmokingtire.com with your modified car, your buddy's modified car, and let us know where we should travel in the world if you're willing to show us what's up. And also, remember, we're not gone. Every single week at youtube.com/thesmokingtire and at thesmokingtire.com, we're posting new videos, we're posting podcasts, we're posting articles. We don't go anywhere. We're right here. You just got to come find us. And I'm going to finish this beer. You guys finish this video. And we'll see you at the Smoking Tire. Peace.
Winner.
Focus on Larry.
That's right. Slide clean.